Training Module 8, Violence Against Women. Summary of the module. After completing this module, you will recognize violence against women and girls as gender-based violence, identify the human rights framework that defines violence against women and girls as a violation, be able to name different forms of violence against women and girls throughout the life cycle and in specific contexts, be able to identify some of the causes and factors that put women and girls at risk, and discover some of the key strategies to address violence against women and girls. At the end of this module, the participants will be able to describe the term violence against women, to give examples of types of violence against women, to inference related to the reasons of increasement in violence against women, to empathize with women who experience violence against them, to explain the individual and social consequences of violence against women. Subunit 1. What is violence? Violence is an important public health problem that can be seen in all areas of human life and is increasing in the world. Allen, et al. 2000. The World Health Organization, WHO, defines violence as the situation where physical force or power is intentionally applied to another person in the form of threat or reality, causing or likely to cause injury, death, or psychological harm to the person exposed. One point two. Types of violence: physical violence, economical violence, psychological, emotional violence, verbal violence, sexual violence. Do you know this? The numbers are staggering. 35% of women worldwide have experienced either physical and or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence. Globally, 7% of women have been sexually assaulted by someone other than a partner. Globally, as many as 38% of murders of women are committed by an intimate partner. 200 million women have experienced female genital mutilation, cutting. Subunit 2. Gender-based violence and violence against women. Gender-based violence and violence against women are two terms that are often used interchangeably, as most violence against women is inflicted by men for gender-based reasons, and gender-based violence affects women disproportionately. 1. Defining violence against women. The United Nations Declarations on the Elimination of Violence Against Women defines violence against women as any act of gender-based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or psychological harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts, coercion or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or in private life. 2. Defining gender-based violence against women. Gender-based violence refers to any type of harm that is perpetrated against a person or group of people because of their factual or perceived sex, gender, sexual orientation, and or gender identity. Subunit 3. Defining violence against women and girls. The terms gender-based violence and violence against women are frequently used interchangeably in literature and by advocates. However, the term gender-based violence refers to violence directed against a person because of his or her gender and expectations of his or her role in a society or culture. Gender-based violence highlights the gender dimension of these types of acts. In other words, the relationship between females' subordinate status in society and their increased vulnerability to violence. It is important to note, however, that men and boys may also be victims of gender-based violence, especially sexual violence. Subunit 4. Why is gender-based violence a problem? 1. Gender-based violence is a human rights violation. 2. Gender-based violence threatens a person's physical and psychological integrity. 3. Gender-based violence is discrimination. 4. Gender-based violence is an obstacle to gender equality. 5. Gender-based violence is underreported and there is often impunity for perpetrators. 6. Gender-based violence affects everyone. 7. Gender-based violence has a very heavy economic cost. Subunit 5. What causes gender-based violence? Gender-based violence, and in particular violence against women, is one of the most pronounced expressions of the unequal power relations between women and men. The main cause of the violence is the perpetrator, him or herself. It is very important to keep in mind that a person who has been affected by gender-based violence is never responsible for the perpetrator's actions. What causes gender-based violence? 1. Cultural factors. 2. Legal factors. 3. Economic factors. 4. Political factors. Subunit 6. Definition of gender-based violence and its types. We shall distinguish 5 interrelated types of violence. 1. Physical violence. 2. Verbal violence, including hate speech. 3. Psychological violence. 4. Sexual violence. 5. Socioeconomic violence. Subunit 7. Domestic violence or violence in intimate relationships. Domestic violence or intimate partnership violence is the most common type of gender-based violence. According to the Istanbul Convention, domestic violence includes acts of physical, sexual, psychological, or economic violence that occur within the family or domestic unit or between former or current spouses or partners, whether or not the perpetrator shares or has shared the same residence with the victim. Subunit 8. Harassment and sexual harassment. Harassment is said to occur where an unwanted conduct related to the sex of a person occurs with the purpose or effect of violating the dignity of a person and of creating an intimidating, hostile, degrading, humiliating, or offensive environment. Sexual harassment is where any form of unwanted verbal, nonverbal, or physical conduct of a sexual nature occurs with the purpose or effect of violating the dignity of a person, in particular when creating an intimidating, hostile, degrading, humiliating, or offensive environment. Subunit 9. Consequences and costs. Consequences. Violence leads to other violations of women's rights. 1. The right to live. 2. The right not to be subject to be tortured or degrading treatment or punishment. 3. The right to equal protection according to humanitarian norms. 4. The right to liberty and security of person. 5. The right to equal protection under law. 6. The right to equality in the family. 7. The right to the highest standard attainable of physical and mental health. 8. The right to just and favorable conditions. Consequences. Social and health effects of violence. Health effects. Social effects. Individual and community consequences and costs. 1. Violence against women reduces productivity and drains public budgets. 2. The cost and consequence of violence against women lasts for generations. 3. Sexual violence deprives girls of education. 4. Violence harms reproductive, maternal, and child health. 5. Violence fuels the HIV and AIDS pandemic. 6. Life is dangerous for women and girls on streets and in city slums. Subunit 10. Gender-based violence and human rights. 1. Universal Declaration of Human Rights. 2. Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. 3. Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women. 4. Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women, its Causes and Consequences. 5. International Framework for Action to Prevent Trafficking in Persons Protocol. 6. Explanatory Report to the Council of Europe Convention on Action Against Trafficking in Human Beings. Subunit 10. Gender-based violence and human rights. 7. Domestic violence legislation and its implementation. An analysis for Asian countries based on international standards and good practices. 8. UNFPA Strategy and Framework of Action to Addressing Gender-Based Violence, 2007-2011. 9. International Violence Against Women, U.S. Response and Policy Issues. Erasmus+. This project has been funded with support from the European Commission. This publication reflects the views only of the author, and the Commission cannot be held responsible for any use which may be made of the information contained therein.